Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 59th lesson of A Course in Miracles. And as usual, I am so very excited for today, y'all. The 59th lesson of A Course in Miracles is God is my strength. Vision is his gift. God is my strength. Vision is his gift. And today, everyone, I am honored to welcome someone who has interacted with the other side and has a renewed vision. Gary Wimmer, professional psychic, actor, writer, and musician, had a near-death experience in 1977 that revealed the unity that underlies all things and it still profoundly affects him to this day. So Gary, welcome to the sharing group.
Well, thank you, my dear. Good to see you, Loretta.
Guys. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. So why don't you start with just a couple of events leading up to your NDE, and then let us know about the NDE.
Okay, well, I can talk, so if you want to interrupt me and ask me questions. I'll give you a little history about myself. I'm the third of seven brothers. I was born on November 8th. I had two brothers born December 8th, exactly a year apart, 45, 46. I was born in November 47. Raised Catholic, always had a good feeling about God. But when I went through puberty, like a lot of Catholics, I went, the Catholic Church lacks some knowledge about human sexuality. So I had no problem with God, but I certainly questioned the church. Not their intentions, just their knowledge, I think. So anyway, I went to college and I started a lot of people, different religions, and I started a lady did a horoscope for me, told me I had a lot of natural psychic ability, turned me on to Edgar Cayce, Ruth Montgomery, Matt Blavatsky. I started reading in 68 and 69 a lot about Edgar Cayce. And that actually, when I tuned into Edgar Cayce and read about, God, creation, the universe, reincarnation, it's the first time in my life I thought, this makes sense. There's no flaws in the system. It's not contradictory. In 1970, I moved to Austin and I met another astrologer, and she said, you got a lot of psychic ability. You ought to practice it. So I started learning to give readings with regular playing cards mostly, kind of my own system. I'm a musician. I graduated in 1970, electrical engineering, Texas Tech. It was all defense work. I was a war protester. I mean, I was a musician. I went through the sex, drugs, and rock and roll of the 60s and 70s. And I was not going to go to the military. I served as a conscientious objector for 2 years, got out, started playing music, and still doing readings. I was interested in that. In 1977, in January and February 1977, my life radically changed. Because out of the clear blue, everything turned, within 24 hours, my whole reality had turned into something I'd never even thought about. I started picking up signs and seeing things happen before they'd happen. And I remember the first impression I got was my roommate was walking in the morning with the paper, and I read the headlines through his eyes. And he threw the paper down on the table, and I'm just staring at it. And he says, "What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, wow, nothing." Well, things that day, and this was about the end of January 77. I walked to the store and I started hearing everybody's thoughts. Couldn't understand it. We went out to a club that night and I started hearing everybody's thoughts. Life had changed radically and I couldn't take the intensity of it. So I went and sat in the bar by myself where it was a little quieter, hopefully. And I imagined when I was coming into the club, there was this eerie feeling I got at a certain part right by the door. So I'm sitting down at the bar and I thought about going outside to get a breath of air. And all of a sudden I felt like I'm standing at that spot again. And customers are walking right through me. And it freaked me out. I opened my eyes. Nope, I'm still sitting on the bar stool. But the door opened and I saw these people walk in just like I'd seen them. So I started imagining myself jumping outside and seeing who's coming in. and I could do it. And my roommate came in from the back room, started asking me what was going on, and I couldn't explain it to him. So I bet him $5 a couple times that I could tell how the next people were dressed. And he thought I'd been looking outside cheating. No, this went on and on and on. I started picking up signs. I started knowing who was going to call next. I started seeing clocks all the time. Like I'd go over to a friend would call and I'd have to meet him, and I'd see a clock say 10:22 or whatever, and I'd go over and meet him, and either their watch or a clock would say 10:22 exactly. This synchronicity was beyond phenomenal, and I didn't know what was going on. And it was fascinating and enlightening, but sort of terrifying because I couldn't turn it off. I had no idea. And by the second and third day, my roommates were concerned, my friends were concerned. I was very concerned because I had no idea what was happening or why. So this went on and on and on. I'll give you an example. It got so intense, there was no way to ignore it. I had to participate in this new world. I could not ignore it. So therefore, I was either picking things up, absorbing things, clairvoyant, psychic before they'd happen, or I would act on things. And I would look at a random stranger 2 blocks away and think, scratch your head and point up to that building. And they would do it. And I'd think, wait a minute, did I know that was going to happen?
Wow.
And pick it up? And that's cool. But if I made that happen by my thoughts, what if I thought car wreck? And the intensity, I couldn't separate witness from creator anymore. It was unbelievable. So I had to be so aware of my thoughts. You know, wow, our thoughts affect things. And this is about day 2 or 3 of this. I'll give you an example. The whole book's this book I wrote, Second in Eternity. It pretty clearly tells that story. It's got the police records and court records, and it was a big thing. I can't prove anything happened up to the point of that I'm about to explain, but from there on, there was cops, ambulance, police, and courts, and judges, and family, you name it. So anyway, this is about the third day of going through this, and it's getting real intense. So my roommate and I give you an example of what I was going through. Where we went to a restaurant here, and I can't quite explain it to him, so I keep kind of showing him because it was so fast I couldn't. It was happening faster than I get the words out. So I said, I'll give you an example of what I'm going through. He said, how you feeling? I said, I'm pretty intense, man. I don't understand it. What's going on? Well, I'll give you an example. And I looked over at 2 ladies in the far end of the restaurant, as far away from us as I could find. And they're both looking, neither of them look at our direction. So I kind of nodded and said, do you know either of those ladies? And he said, no. I said, me neither. So I'm going to have the brunette who's not looking our way. Not the other one's kind of facing a little bit more. I said, I'm gonna have the brunette write a letter to me. What? I said, I'm gonna have her write a letter. Perfectly harmless thing. So while we're eating, I'm constantly thinking about that brunette, harmlessly, but saying, hey, I'm the guy over here in the blue shirt or whatever. Imagining a light or a laser beam directing her from her table right over me and asking her to write me a letter. Very harmless. And so we're eating and eating. And finally, the 2 ladies walked out, and the brunette was the second. And she threw down a napkin on the table. And in big letters, capitalized letters, she had written, why are you doing this to me? With exclamation points. Whew, that absolutely blew my mind, blew his mind. I was so freaked out. And so was he. I couldn't even go ask her, what did you pick up? That's what I was curious about. So there's a lot of incidents in this 200-page book that I went through, and I'll continue, okay?
Okay.
So after about a solid week of this, it really was, I was not sleeping. I have never been so enlightened and felt so powerful at the same time. I have never felt so terrified. It was not a world that I'd ever been in. My body was here, but I was living in multi-dimensions at once, different realities, and I could pick up just about anything. And that's not a very comfortable feeling after a while. You like to turn it off. I couldn't sleep. after that, and I kept feeling these, they called themselves the monitors, these guardian angels. I kept felt that some higher consciousness kind of watching me. I could feel them. They seemed to be in twos or threes or fours, kind of monitoring me, kind of watching me. And I called them the monitors because they seemed to suggest that name for themselves. And they gave me some comfort, like, well, you're kind of being protected and watched in some way, but I couldn't, call them up and say, hey, what the hell's going on? I would have. But after a week, I was terrified, and I had freaked out my friends and myself and neighbors, and I had no idea what was going on, but it was getting so intense I couldn't take it. And I left our house. I was going to go walk over to my girlfriend's house. My car wasn't working. It was, about 8 miles away, but I had so much energy. It's just, a 2 minute stretch for me because I'd never had so much physical energy in my life. Still not sleeping, eating, but not sleeping. So as I raced toward there, it was interesting. I could feel my intellectual mind going over and over and over and over. What's going on? Why? And then at some point, it was about 7 o'clock or about 6 o'clock or so on February 7th, 1977. All of a sudden, I felt my logical mind do a complete circle. Like every synapse had connected with every other synapse, and there was no answer in my logical mind about what I was going through or why. And that was kind of liberating, haunting, but liberating. It's like, well, can't look there. Quit trying to analyze it. Quit trying to think about it. It's like a complete circle, and it ain't in the analytical mind. Ain't. So I was still walking. I was walking on my girlfriend's house. I got picked up by a hitchhiker. I mean, by a car. It was cold outside. He pulled over and picked me up. I knew his name. He was a UT student, everything before he even got in the car. And of course, he started talking and confirmed it. I didn't even ask him. I got up to Guadalupe Street in Austin, and he let me out, and it was amplifying. It was people walked by. I could hear every thought. I could see everything. I was terrified. And by this time, I was crying, and I was praying, and I was talking out loud, and a lot of people were kind of looking at me like, what's with this guy? And I kind of wanted to say, hey, just stay away. Don't get close to me. I thought I was so in another world that I could be explosive. Like I might blow up and just splatter all over you people. To stay in your clearance. I didn't say that, but I felt that because I could see their concern. Mm-hmm. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm crying. I'm praying. I'm scared. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of this terror and this confusion, and I was praying, God, please help me. And I looked up, and all of a sudden, the fear gone, instantly gone. This warm light was on me. I looked up, and it looked like a huge spotlight shining down on me. I immediately looked around and noticed none of these people on the street, pedestrians who had been concerned about me and watching me, they didn't see it or they didn't react to it. And so I looked back up, and sure enough, I saw these white-robed figures, and they had their hands on like a glass or crystal table, and it was about 6 feet diameter. It was a specific size. The table was about 2 inches, inch and a half, 2 inches thick, crystal. The table they were about 6 feet above me. I remember thinking if I had a ladder, I could go touch it. This is instantaneous. All of a sudden, I went from fear to seeing this light and these beings and the light coming from their hands down through the crystal table, and none of these people recognizing this. And so they said, do you trust us? And I said, absolutely, I trust you. You're the monitors. You're the good. Yeah. Do you trust us? I said, I don't understand what's going on. So I'm picking up, do you trust us? In one voice, real warm, James Earl Jones voice, that do you, real comforting. And like I said, fear had completely vanished as soon as I looked up and felt this warm light and saw them. Long story short, it's hard to explain. It's written in the book. Within a couple seconds or so, I was hit head on by a speeding car. All of a sudden, I'm outside my body, watching my own car watching my own body getting toppled over by the car, and feeling this sort of kind of detachment, almost like humor. Wow, it's my body getting creamed up, but that's on Earth, and I ain't on Earth, and I'm leaving, and I'm expanding outward like a balloon. I'm not going in one direction. In no time, Austin became a little dot. The whole world became a little golf ball inside me. I was seeing it from all angles at once, north, south, east, west. I was seeing the whole world, three-dimensional, 3D, because even though my body was in Guadalupe Street, my consciousness, my psyche, my spirit was expanding like a balloon. And all of a sudden, I'm going through planets and galaxies, and everything's going inside me. And I had no memory by that point of who I was. It was pure sensation, and it was beautiful. I can't describe how beautiful and empowering, but I didn't feel like it was me experiencing it. Feel like it was just an experience and I was on the ride. There was less and less me involved. Went through the edge of the universe, and I felt like I passed through this level of consciousness that seemed to call itself the colors. And what I felt like, that's a level of consciousness that when we come, because I realized when our souls expand outward, that's how we leave the body. We go out in all directions at once. We don't go out like an arrow. Wow. When we come into birth from the mother, we collapse in all points at once and arrive right there at the point of birth. We may be hovering over that soul for a while, but we're not connected till birth. Sorry, folks. So anyway, I was expanding outward, and reached the edge of the universe, and it seemed like a thought, an idea, a concept. And I went through this realm called the colors that seemed like it gave us the insight till once we get to Earth, the colors gave us the ability to use our senses and our mind to connect back to where we came from and how and why. But we have to learn that. We have to practice that, just like you have to practice English or dancing or whatever, piano, combing your hair, whatever. So I was beyond the universe, and then I saw infinite universes, like a sky full of stars, and they got so immense it was big, one eternal white sky of universes, infinite, and they all kind of rolled up into it like a tunnel of light. Best description I can say. And I got shot through this tunnel of light. And like I say, it was a beautiful sensation. I can't remember it being me, but it was, because I remember every detail about it. But I had no personal I certainly had no fear. And it was like I was a passenger on a train, but you're getting to see so much scenery, you don't even think about yourself sitting in the train or having bought a ticket or whatever. So I go through this big tunnel of light, and that's a perfect description. That's really what it felt like. Felt like silver and white clouds kind of going around me. And I made the cover of the book with my body being stretched going through that, because that's what it felt like. It was nighttime, but I was launching out through the cosmos and expanding in all directions, going through this tunnel of light. And then I ended up in this infinite blue void. And it was the mind of God. And I had no awareness of me observing it, but I was a part of it. And I saw infinite creativity over infinite time. There was no bias. God's not any more Jewish than Catholic, than black or white. It's infinite, beyond all the ability to even conceive of a limit or a bias. And I realized there was two choices, two possibilities. Either this infinite mind existed with no limitation, and everything exists, and even scientists now, quantum physicists, multi-universes, everything that can happen will happen. In infinite time, everything will happen, There'll be a duplicate of you that's in my body. We're stuck in time and space in a certain direction, but infinite possibilities are always happening. And it blew my mind to see that and experience it, even though I didn't know I was experiencing it. But all of a sudden, it felt like I was experiencing, I was witnessing it, I was watching it, and I was kind of pulled away. And I use the term spiritual gravity in the book because I felt like I was being pulled away from this infinite mind. It was really cool. I liked being there. I had no idea where I was headed to or why. And I was kind of apprehensive because I was instantly pulled back into time and space and collapsed through that tunnel of light in reverse and the edge of the universe and collapsing into this galaxy. And the closer I got to this galaxy and Earth, the more I started, especially Earth, I still had no idea who I was, but I started seeing all these pictures of the future, of 9/11, of COVID-19, of wars, of breakups, of social society screaming and hollering, anger, pollution. And it scared the hell out of me. It looked like, oh boy, we got a bad future. And then I saw a series of pictures of a very highly enlightened planet, highest technology, and going to space and solving our problems, And I know that's where we're headed, but we got a lot of holes in the boat to fix before we get there. So I was seeing where we're at and the trouble we're going through and why we need to go through this big world change. Everybody is affected by it. You can believe it or not believe it, doesn't matter. You're affected by it. You cannot believe in gravity. But if you drop something, it's going down, not up, regardless of what you believe. So the whole world is going through this, and I saw this, and now in real time that I see it unfolding, I understand why. We have to see what needs to be fixed. So anyway, I'm coming back into my body. I saw these pictures of the world in the future, in the immediate future, the next 50, 100 years on this planet, and it's tumultuous. It's going to be trying, but humankind makes big leaps when we have challenges. We sit on our ass and eat olives. We don't learn anything except how to eat olives or whatever. So as I came back into my body, the third thing I saw was pictures of me. And I didn't know it was me yet, but it was like I didn't play piano at the time. I was playing piano. I was touring in Europe. I didn't do that at the time. Hell, I was trying to fight for a gig. I didn't have a good voice. I went through a lot of depression in my 20s from 1968 to 70, well, in the early 70s, trying to fit in a band. And I played in some bands, but I was never real thrilled with them because, I didn't have a good voice. I was an expendable sideman, and that just scared the hell out of me. So anyway, I'm coming back to my body, and I'm seeing all these pictures of me traveling all over and so forth. I went, wow, there might be a future for me in music. And then all of a sudden, I saw my body in the street and the car and people screaming and this red-haired guy shaking me. And it's like I went, I'm home. That's me. And I jumped back in my body. And the first thing I saw was this long red hair hanging into my face. And this guy going, man, are you okay? I couldn't stop. I tried to stop. He was terrified. Needless to say, he just hit a guy and thought he kind of killed him. Well, I've been to heaven and back. I felt absolutely no pain, no shock. I didn't feel anything except ecstasy. And so, come on, get off me. I pushed the guy off. I jumped to my feet. I started talking to people, asking them if they'd seen these monitors. Well, the circle got real wide. And I was in the center, and I went, this don't look too good. Ain't nobody going to believe me. In no time at all, there's cops and ambulance at the scene, and they're saying, how the hell did you not get hurt? You're standing up talking. I didn't feel a thing. I said, I'm fine. Can I just go home? No. Cops asked me what happened. I tried to explain to them what I'd been through. That made no sense. And the cops were looking at me like, can't you confess to some crime we can relate to? Nope. This is what happened. You asked. You asked why I didn't get hurt? Well, of course they couldn't understand that. I could understand that. They wouldn't let me walk home. They took me to the emergency room, x-rayed me, nothing hurt, nothing at all. But they couldn't just let me go home because of what I was telling them. And I could understand that. So a man came in and I knew his name. I'd seen premonitions about him, told him where he went to college. How do you know me? I said, I pick up everything. He was a psychiatrist. And the bottom line, he said, we can't let you just walk home. You're not physically hurt, but we got to have you under a psychiatric study because of what you're saying and the fact that you were at a head-on collision. You got up and walked away like nothing damn happened. We have to look into this a little bit. And I didn't care. I said, man, I don't care where you put me. I've just been to heaven and back. I don't care where. Just don't put me in with a bunch of goons, but get me a cell by myself. A cell because they had to take me to jail, put me in jail because they had to get a court order signed by family or cops or something to put me in a psychiatric hospital. So I wasn't going home. And I went to jail because I had to wait till the court came open. And I was in jail about a day and a half or two. And meanwhile, all the people in the jail, the prisoners in the other cells, I'm talking about their cases and suggesting all, and they're going, "How do you know this?"
Wow.
Man, I know everything right now. Even the psychiatrist.
Wow.
He said, "How do you know this?" I said, "I know everything right now." He said, "Like what?" And I said, "Well, last week, your wife's out of town and you and your son rearranged all the furniture in the living room. She came home and didn't like it because it cut down on floor space and he had just about fell over." He said, "That
Lord,
happened 3 days ago." I said, "I know. I see it real clearly. I can see everything. What I couldn't do is turn it off or understand why. Seeing it was no problem. Dealing it was getting to be a very complicated issue. And here now I'm going to jail in a psychiatric hospital. Jesus, where does this go next?" Well, they took me to a psychiatric hospital and they put me in the protective intensive care unit, PICU. And as soon as I saw that, I thought I was seeing symbolism. I thought it was going like, "Psst, I see you." Everything was symbolism. My psychiatrist was Dr. Albright. I said, "Albright, you're not that bright. You're not even listening." He didn't believe in psychic ability. Every day he would come in. Before he'd come in, I'd write down I'd look at a clock and say, "What time's the doctor coming in?" Okay, 2:34. I'd write that down on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, seal it, give it to the nurse at the station, and say, "Give this to the doctor as soon as he comes in," because they came in at random times to check on their patients, randomly. He came in my room, "What's this letter? I'll read it later." "No, open it now, read it." Okay. 2:34, what does that mean? Look at your watch. "Ah, nice coincidence, Gary. Second day, third day, he wouldn't even be open anymore. I could predict to the minute when he would come in." And I said, "And you don't believe in psychic ability?"
wow.
I said, he was a real fundamentalist psychiatrist, a Christian Baptist, a nice guy. But when I started talking about God, reincarnation, seeing God, infinite possibility, that just blew his little crumbling mind. But ironically, told him about his kids. He didn't even mention it. I started talking about his kids. It's probably, "How the hell are you picking this up?" "Well, doc, that's what I'm talking about." Bottom line, at the end of a week, they took me in front of a board of 10 psychiatrists, and I said, "I ain't changing my story. I didn't get hurt because I was protected spiritually and psychically. You guys need to look into this. You're the doctors, you know. Look at what happened. Use me as a test subject. I'll help you. I'll explain everything I went through. Of course, they're busy with other patients. And anyway, I got out after 10 days, had a couple of kind of relapses because it took me months to kind of come to terms with, God, that's so intense. And what do I do with it now? What do I do with it? It's like having the answers to everything, but you can't even go out the door to tell anybody, or something. I don't know. I felt very lucky, very empowered, like the luckiest person on the planet. Uh, but it took me months to kind of get back into reality because I was still picking up signs all the time. And that has never ended. Since that day forward, I use my knowledge of the reality of our higher mind, our guides. It's absolutely there, but I tell people you have to ask your guides to help you. The rule is they don't have the right to break in your free will, which was kind of confusing because I was wondering why the hell I had this experience. And 8 months later, my guides, I didn't see them this time, the monitors, they came back and I was sitting on the porch playing my guitar, wondering why I had this again. It's 5 or 6 months later, 8 months later. And I felt this beam of light hit me in the head. And I felt like these monitors were somewhere in my front yard somewhere. And they shot this message into my third eye and it rolled off like screen credits in a movie, rolling off at the same time I could hear it in this deep voice. And it only lasted for a second or two, but it felt like it was stretched out over time because and they basically said, the reason you had this, you always wanted to know. You always wanted to ask. You were ready. You could handle it. We took you. We brought you back. The car accident gave us a perfect time and place to let you leave your body, and we knew it'd be a shock. So when you came back, you're correct, Gary, you had a lot of grounding agents, cops, police, ambulance, courts, or, family. I wanted to make sure I was grounded because it was too intense, and it all made sense, and they answered me. So even my higher mind, at the time of the incident, they asked me, "Do you trust us?" Very clearly. I don't know what it said if I'd have said no. I have no idea. And number two, they confirmed to me later that the reason I had this was because I've always asked for it and wanted it. I'd been thinking it's the most obvious thing. Why did I have this? I wanted to know. Curiosity. I didn't connect those two obvious dots till they put them together for me.
Wow.
But
Wow.
yeah, it's an incredible story. I feel like one of the luckiest people on the planet. And from that day forward, I've realized how real higher mind and guides and our connection to infinite mind. And every one of us is connected through a spiritual umbilical cord right back to infinite mind. There's nothing between it except our own conscious, subconscious bias, fears, and doubts. If anything prevents that light from coming on, it's within us. Period. Years later, I learned how to use this method of lithomancy. A lady, I got a reading from her, and she showed me her method, and I started making it my method and wrote a book on it because, I'd done tarot and palmistry and so forth, but I'd never seen lithomancy. And by the way, if your clients want to get a hold of me, the easiest way is lithomancy.com, lithomancy.com. Or you can Google Gary Wimmer, GaryWimmer, you'll find me. You can Google A Second in Eternity, you'll find my books, both Second Eternity and Lithomancy, the Psychic Art of Reading Stones, are available on Kindle and Amazon. And as I was saying in this book, I don't know if you can see this, toward the end, there's all these police records.
Wow.
I blotted out the names. You can go find it. It's a public record. Hell, you can go down to Austin, look up my case and get it. But just didn't want to publish in the book the names of the cops and so forth. Right. It doesn't matter. They're probably dead by now. I don't know. This is 45 years ago, and they were 35 or 40 then, and I was 29. But every day, I thank my guides for that. Because I look at the chaos and the upsetness in the world and the hurt and the pain and I get my share of curveballs too. But I realize that everything we go through in life is trying to teach us something. There's no moments that have to be in vain. There's nothing that has to be pointless. If we think it's in vain, if we think it's pointless and meaningless, it is. Because that's the glasses we're looking through. Everything is a product of your vision. If you look through green glass, everything looks green. Pink glass, everything looks pink. And if you look through, I can learn from anything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then guess what? You learn from everything just by choice. Choice is it. Power of free will. Think wisely.
Thank you so much. That's just like, I feel like a fire hose of water has been sprayed. Like, what an incredible, impactful experience. It's a lot. Thank you for sharing.
Definitely impactful, and it was definitely beautiful. And I definitely feel like one of the luckiest people on the planet. Everybody has different NDE experiences, no two are alike, but there are very common themes. The most common are these. Everybody who has an NDE says, never fear death. It's beautiful out there. Our challenge is here, now, in this body, in this form, in time and space. It ain't out there. We can't do anything about it except do good now, period. So never fear death. And number two, just about everybody who's had an NDE talks about infinite love. Infinite love. You've never imagined it. And yeah, that's what I felt too. When I was seeing this infinite creativity and infinite mind and infinite possibilities over infinite time with no limitation whatsoever, what was most fascinating was at the core of it was infinite love, and how infinite love manifests into infinite time and infinite possibilities beyond the laws of physics or human comprehension, but it does. It starts with infinite love and turns into infinite manifestation over infinite time. And I think the interesting thing about God is because we're humans, we think in terms of, fortunately, in terms of Jesus or Allah or good people or some sort of human manifestation of godliness, which is good. It's hard to imagine an infinite mind, infinite universe when we're little minuscule people. Unless you get like I got taken there and shown it how perfect and beautiful it is. It's just a lot of people feel like, what do you mean a God with no biases? Well, it's infinite time and infinite creativity. All things will manifest eventually, and that's the power of free will. So don't take it personal if everybody's not a Christian or Muslim or thinks pink is a better color than green or whatever. You know?
Thank you so much, Gary. I've heard you say, and I think this is so important, that we are all psychic. All of us are psychic. Can you talk about how we can tap into those psychic abilities?
Yeah, I think, and I probably would have never thought this way had I not experienced it. Because, like I said, I started studying psychedelic in the late 60s and early 70s with the people I mentioned, Edgar Cayce and so forth, and reading books on, reading signs and spirituality and so forth. First of all, believe. You're never going to hit the damn baseball unless you get up there with a good bat and believe you can hit it, because attitude is everything. Perception. Believe you can grow, evolve, learn. Believe you can heal yourself. Believe you can get more information. That's number one step. At least give yourself the right to give it a damn try. Believe. Number two, practice. Everything we go through, and I realize this because the wall that separated my conscious and subconscious mind dissipated. And I was picking everything up from a subconscious point of view, a spiritual point of view, a symbolic point of view, not a logical, simple. Because if it was logical and simple, you go get the paper, you read it, put it away. Nothing's complicated. But everything was complicated. Everything was tied together in such immensity. So what I suggest is look at life externally. It's always talking to you. Ask your guides through meditation and intentions to help you develop skills to read the universe. When I was in Europe, I've started doing readings with Lithomancy way back in 1980. I lived in Europe in the 90s, and a lot of people asked me for readings when I didn't have my stones with me, maybe over another girlfriend's house or whatever. So I started having people just arrange stuff on a table, a deck of cards, an earring, a coin, a teaspoon, whatever. I'd go back and make some tea. 2 minutes later, I'd walk back in the room and have people or a person set up this stuff around the table. And I'd read the table. I'd read the ashtray. Why not?
Wow.
I realized you can read anything. Now, it's an art, it's practice. But first of all, you got to believe it. I would have never believed it had not been exposed to me full throttle 100% 45 years ago in 77. There's no way to say I don't believe it. The universe is always can be looked at from a level higher than our conscious mind, but we have to practice that. We have to develop that. If you want to be a great golfer, you have to, like anything, A, make a decision, and B, practice.
Gary, thank you for your contribution on the subject of lithomancy. It's not something that I feel like is tapped into enough. So thank you for writing a book on lithomancy. I wanted to ask you, I know you've talked about a lot about symbolism. And I just think that's just a realm that goes over a lot of our heads, because people just don't really even think in those terms. Give an example of symbolism that you've recognized in your environment, that you've received a message through. And how can
Well,
we tap into that?
I'll just give you an example. About 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I had to go somewhere. I couldn't find my car keys, going from one drawer to the next, getting frantic. And then I finally went, you know what? This frantic search for the car keys at the last second ain't working. So I'm going to change tactics. Guides, you know where the keys are. Gary, and my synapses, I know where they are because I took them somewhere, left them. Infinite Mind, you know where they are. So I'll tell you what, synapses, guides, Infinite Mind, y'all get together and y'all just bring me to the keys. Let me just pass them. Let me just see them out of the clear blue. It may work, it may not, but if I don't try it, I'll never know if it'll work or not. So I'm quitting the search, and y'all just let me find them, steer by them. And I went from the office, which I was frantically searching, and to pour a cup of coffee, started pouring the coffee, looked over, and there are my keys by the microwave, right there, instantaneously. And I grabbed them, and because I listened, and because I asked my guides and higher mind to talk to me, as clearly as I'm talking to you, I felt my keys say through my guides, the keys can't walk, Gary, but your system works. Try it.
Wow.
And so from that point forward, I'm 75. I have a lot of back problems. I can barely walk. I don't go look for anything. I misplace stuff. I just think about it and I find it. About 6 years ago, I'm in the garage and I'm working on something, got some tools out of my trunk, working on the ground. Somewhere in that process, I emptied the recycling. Can't remember the order of events, but I need to get some more tools out of my trunk, and I couldn't find my keys, my car keys. I just had them. Where are they? So rather than frantically looking around for them, I thought, maybe I could have locked them in the trunk. I don't know. I put my head down and I meditated for a minute on, okay, let me find my keys. Let me find my car keys. Didn't even notice all the tools on the floor that I was meditating. Didn't care. And after a minute of meditation, I thought, okay, the first thing I see when I open my eyes is going to be a sign to tell me where my keys are instead of me going through a search. Why not? It may work, it may not, but I'll never know unless I try. And so I meditated for a minute. I opened my eyes, and yep, the same screwdriver that was there a minute ago is still there. But now I notice it's pointing right over the recycle bin, directly to it. I went, wait a minute.
Wow.
I went over the recycling bin, dumped the whole thing over. Yep, they were in my hand when I turned the recycling over. But I
Wow.
never looked there. I
Wow.
had to buy a new set of keys. By asking and believing, they pointed right over to there. And I didn't move the screwdriver, and I didn't notice before I asked that it was already pointing there. It just connected the dots for me. Believe in miracles.
Incredible, man.
Not all of them work,
Yeah,
but the more you practice, the better ratio you get.
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Oh, I
Um,
live on miracles now. I mean,
yeah,
I've certainly got issues. I deal with bills and problems. And as you know, a couple of days ago, my pipes broke and I had to cancel our meeting and go to cut the water off, because I had a leak. Everybody gets curveballs, everybody gets challenges, but everybody on this planet can learn and benefit from anything
yes,
if you choose to do so. It's
yes.
a choice.
I love that you say, I believe in miracles. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's why you experience miracles. Talk a little bit more about your perception of miracles, how possible that is for us in this realm, only if we just open up to it.
Well, I had I not been hit head on by a speeding car and not even felt it, and had there not been police reports, 50 witnesses and cops and ambulances, I'd look back and think, did I imagine that? No, I got the police records. Family knew it. Hell, they called my brother and the cops. My whole family was freaked out. What the hell's going on with Gary? And when I wrote the book and I finally gave them a book, they went, oh, I said, I can't explain this in 5 minutes what happened, led up to me being hit by that car and not getting hurt. Yeah, I believe in miracles. Uh, don't get everyone I'd like. I'd like Ukraine to, I'd like Russia. Personally, I like Putin to be out of the picture. And I
Mhm,
made a deal with God. You take me, the same time you take him, deal done. I'll go. But I don't get to make that deal.
mhm,
You know,
mhm.
there's things we can change. and things we can't. But the real miracle is realizing what we can change and working on that. We'll drive ourselves nuts trying to change history, or, we can't change the past. We can't change other people.
Yeah.
You can influence people, you can beg, but you can't make someone believe that the earth is round instead of square. They won't leave it square.
Yeah.
You can prove it to them and they won't buy the proof. Be at peace with what you can learn within yourself, because that's where the true knowledge is. And the miracle making ability, it's natural.
Yes.
That's what Jesus was telling his whole life. Said, if you believe, you had faith, you could do this. But I realized in my little mini episode in 77, because several times during this episode, I only put it once in the book, I didn't want to be redundant, but several times I kept feeling like, oh God, I'm Jesus Christ reincarnated, and I can't handle it. But I felt like I, for a while, could kind of touch into the consciousness that Christ had to walk around in to be able to maintain this level over the Romans and the stupid people and the fighting, but several times I felt that way. And then I realized, no, I'm not. I mean, I can't walk down the street without, being so intense. But the concept was true. Everybody has to reach that consciousness. And that's what it was telling me. Everybody has to go. But I thought in 77, I thought, that's clever now. A musician who's dead broke, living in Austin, is the reincarnated Christ. Nobody would expect that. But wait a minute, I can't handle it. I can't. It's too big a job. Did I sign up? Can I back out? It ain't my gig. I ain't ready.
Well, we are all one. I always say we are all one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One infinite mind creating everything. And everything we
Go ahead.
everything we experience is this creative mind, infinite mind looking at itself in every possibility.
Yes. There are still people, Gary, who are not aware that they have guides and higher vibrational beings around them. Can you talk a little bit about, we all have guides and angels, archangels, even ascended masters that are around us. And what when you talk about, all we have to do is ask for help.
Yeah, asking is important, because our guides in our higher mind and God and Allah and consciousness and angels and whatever you want to call it, beyond human life or beyond being human, they all know the rule. And the rule is they don't have the right to interfere with your free will.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to ask and you have to practice and you have to make that decision, because otherwise, they could run your whole life. And the whole point of you running your life.
Mm.
So it's making a decision to empower yourself. It's believing that. And yeah, everybody in their lifetime has several times in their lifetime had some sort of tapping on the shoulder or hint or experience that's basically saying, hey, expand your consciousness. There's more to that than this. We have those all the time, but we do get to choose whether to heed the light, pay attention, grow, evolve, or not pay attention at all, not even believe it. We get to choose whether to listen to the tapping on the wall inside of our heart, soul, mind, or not. Free will, free will, free will. Number one power in life, free will. We get to choose how we listen. We get to choose how we look at life. We get to choose what we do next. And, there's things we can choose that we can't get. I've chose to sing like Freddie Mercury. It never happened yet. Probably won't. But my second choice is just figure out how to make a living with this ragged voice that I got.
Well, you did good. You did good, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, I got 90% of what I asked for in my life, because I really never asked the universe to, when I wake up, I want to sing like Ray Charles. I know it ain't going to happen. But I got 90% of what I asked for, because I asked for stuff that was appropriate for me.
Yeah.
It was a win-win.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said it's a win-win for me and other people to ask for stuff that's a win-win. Yeah. And the best intentions of life are geared around the best for all. not just the best for me, the best for all.
Yes.
The best for all. Best decisions we can make, best for all.
You are the epitome of, when I heard your interview, I thought you are the embodiment of what ye seek, ye shall find. And it was
Mhm.
your curiosity that got you into that whole space to have this dynamic experience. I love it.
Absolutely. And I went through hell and back with depression, anxiety, and frustration. It's like I wasn't, uh, the light didn't come to me without having to work on it a lot and turn it on and practice. But once I realized it's there and it's not imaginary, um, I go out of my way to try and encourage other people to, hey, you want to tune into real power? It's in your own heart, your own mind, your own soul, your own connection. You have no idea how many miracles you can make happen because you haven't given yourself the right to try one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Try to just make this day the most beautiful day in your life. Try to, every time something upsets you, that, every day I go through this upsetness, try not to be upset tomorrow about it. Try something different. Decisions, choices, techniques. When we learn to play music, we all hit bad notes. When you learn to drive, hit in other cars or curbs or mailboxes, but you don't have to keep driving crappy and playing crappy notes. Everybody does, until you learn the skill better. The difference between being in physical form and attached to time and space and being free is radically. For example, on Earth, you are one person, I am another, and this bookcase is, those are three different things, right? When you get beyond time and space and atoms and physical and so forth, things aren't separated and defined so clearly. It's one big pudding with everything.
Hmm.
But there may be some molecules closer to the surface and some closer to the bottom. Things aren't as separated, and it's like as they are here. So
Hmm.
you can be at two places at the same time. You can't be on Earth. You can't be in time and space. You cannot occupy two things cannot occupy the same time and space, not even electrons.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
right down to smalls. But up there, those rules are not the same. Down here we think, well, I got three friends and one car and six guardian angels. But when you look, the math doesn't work the same that way. They're not necessarily six. They're six because that gives you something to fix in your mind, but they could be 50 million or one amplifying six different ways. There's the non-linearity is amazing. Does
So,
that make sense?
yes, it does. You do psychic readings.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do it. We see the Lithomancy book behind you. You throw stones or crystals, and according to the pattern of what you see, you're able to give a reading. Did you want to talk a little bit about that for the audience in case they wanted to
Sure.
contact you?
In 1980, I met a lady named Alice Worrell, whose picture's in the book. She's the greatest psychic I've ever met. And she did a stone reading for me called Lithomancy. I'd never seen it before. Uh, and she was a nice lady. And I asked her if she could teach it to me. I never saw this. I like this. She had a class and it was pouring rain. And she was about to cancel the class, decided to show up. And I was the only person that showed up. It was raining so heavy. So she gave me about a 5-10 minute lesson real quick, and because we both wanted to get out of Dodge so we get home before the storm got worse. So I got about a 5-minute lesson, and the next day I got 16 stones and started marking them and started practicing. You know, um, a lot of what I wrote in the book is out of personal experience and common sense and reading intuition and signs because there's no other book written on this system. I've never seen it before, but I liked it because I didn't have to remember the 52 cards or all the lines in the palm. And that's why I started reading cards when I was young.
Mhm.
I didn't want to know all the rules. I just want to get the answer.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So that's kind of why I encourage everybody to think outside the box. You can pick up information from anything. I just happen to use these 16 stones, and I read them like a clock. When the people drop them, if I do it in person, which because of COVID and a lot of things, I'm just doing over the phone readings now.
Mm-hmm.
So when the people say drop, I drop the stones for them. I start here at 12 o'clock. I read around like a clock for 12 weeks. I start in the center, whatever stones are here, and read up to 12 o'clock and like around like a clock. And I notice patterns and triangles. In the last couple years, I have seen triangles in readings all the time, triangles.
Mm-hmm.
And triangles represent third eye and spirituality and pyramids and the number 3 and manifestation, And so I'm seeing a lot of triangles now because the whole universe is trying to get everybody on that vibe. Now, and my guides and the way I do the stones, they send me that symbolism, and however it happens, I don't know how they happen to land in the right place. I think it's just pure intentions with maybe some help from above, but I drop the stones, I read them and I don't remove them. I don't drop them again. And I also don't try to tell people, okay, on Thursday you're going to meet a guy named Joe and at 4 o'clock, because those things can change.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of people that say they're upset because some psychic told them that on June they're supposed to meet a handsome guy named Tom, and well, maybe it was Ted, and maybe it was July, or maybe it was dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they said blonde and he's not blonde. I mean, so I don't try to put on those specifics. What I try to tell people is how you can bring yourself to get your answers and your results, and you can find the right person without expecting me to. So I empower people with how they can get their answers.
Yes.
And that's a lot better because I'm not always available. And besides that, when you get your answers, you're closer to the home base, so you know how to tweak or what parts to accept or not or whatever. It fits into your situation. It's in your language.
So for readings, they can just email you, right? Gary?
They can email me. I set up a time. We agree on a time. They can pay on PayPal or through a credit card when I call. I record the reading. I'm probably the cheapest person on the internet. I charge $60 for 30 minutes, 75 for 45, and 90 for an hour. But I don't want to overcharge. And I don't go out of my way to promote that much because I get enough work to keep me busy, and that's all. I don't want to be booked up 12 hours a day. I'm so many psychics working on the phone 8-10 hours a day. I got a life. I'm 75. I like to relax. I like to play the piano and do a reading or two and work on my books. And so I limit myself to how many readings I do. I just don't want to do them all day long. I'll do 2 or 3 a day max.
Gary, do you have any lasting positive words for the audience before I do the closing remarks? And you've determined to go to I'll put your email address in the bottom of the screen and the description box, and I'll also put the website as well for folks to contact you.
Yes, lithomancy.com. You can email me, GW@GaryWimmer.com, GW@GaryWimmer.com. You can call me and leave a message, and that's, but do leave a message. Because
Right.
I'll look at my phone and I'll get 20 calls, none of which left a message. And I'm not going to go see if these are valid numbers. I just delete. If you don't leave a message, I won't call you back. But 512-707-0836. 512-707-0836. Leave a very clear message and your phone number or email or both, and I'll get back with you. But if you don't leave a message, I ain't calling you back.
Any lasting positive words for the audience?
Yeah, you're beautiful, sweetheart. Like your glow, like your vibe,
Thank
your
you.
energy,
Thank you.
like your magic.
I like your energy too. I told you I love the Southern accent to the 10th power. Okay. I love it. And I'm honored that you join us. But
Oh, me too, girl. Thank you.
Yeah. I was asking, do you have any positive, lasting words for the audience?
Folks, we're going through some intense times. We have to go through these times to figure out what is broken, what needs to be fixed. You can't fix something if you don't see what's broken about it. So we're going through this intense time, and there's not a date on it, but I think the next 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years are going to be a challenge for the human race. But keep your patience, keep your head. Yeah, we got a lot of problems, but every time there's a problem, we get some way of fixing it.
Yeah.
Whether it's war or pollution or something. And so I'm an optimist. Yes, we got a lot of problems. Yes, we're seeing a lot of fractures in the system and in ourselves. But when we see the fractures, we know where the fractures are, then we can fix them. The problem is if you don't know where the fractures are, if you don't know what's broken. So be at peace, because we're getting to see everything that needs to be fixed in 3D and IMAX in real time every day. Count your blessings about it. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. Everybody goes through fear and doubt, but it doesn't help you make a better decision. Go through your fear and doubt, learn from it, then move it aside and think clear and positive about what you can do. And believe, have faith. That's basically, if you follow 2 or 3 of those, you'll find peace. Quit, we're in.
Like you said, it's always about the attitude.
Everything's
Have a
about
positive
perspective.
attitude. Yes. I love
Oh,
it.
I tell people, and this is going on in real time now. You could be as rich as Elon Musk and pissed off because you're stuck with Twitter. Duh, stupid. Or you could be living in Ukraine and outrunning bombs and count your blessings and feel so lucky and so
Yeah.
fortunate.
Yeah.
Those two radical different extremes exist here now today. And it ain't the situation. Obviously, it's how you look at it.
That's right.
It's how you deal with it.
That's right. That's right. So, Gary, I'm going to read the closing remarks. It has been amazing having you on. It really has. Gary, since birth, many of us were placed in small boxes through the conditioning that we've been exposed to. As kids, we had to sit at desks with hard chairs at school for many hours and learn things that did little for our spiritual awareness. And we were told things in our religions that we didn't understand, but had to accept that as truth, even if it didn't feel good. This conditioning into smallness has reached most of us in one form or another. But Gary, through your sheer curiosity and courage to question and explore the truth of who you are, you've been able to manifest miraculous experiences that defy the limitations imposed on us. Thank you for having the desire and the courage to color outside of the lines, for refusing to accept what was told to you, and look at the incredible gifts your curiosity has yielded for you. Thank you for your example and reminder that we are much more than what we have been told. We're much more than what we have been told. It has been a pleasure and an honor having you on the show. It's been most fun and exciting. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta.
Yeah.
God bless you, girl. Keep that
God
great
bless
vibe,
you.
great energy. You just shine, sweetheart.
Yes, I'm gonna be contacting you for a session. I told you I gotta get a lithomancy. I've never received a lithomancy section. So
Most people haven't, because most people don't know about it. And that's what attracted me to it when I first saw it. And by the way, this lady, Alice, who taught me this symbol, I met her in 1980, and she's kind of funky. She's overweight. She has a lot of problems with her broken car and kind of a dysfunctional family, and so I was always helping her all the time, fixing her car and loaning her money, and she'd always say, Gary, I can't pay you back. And for 30 years, I said, Alice, don't worry. I will spend anything. I'll pay up anything right now up front, because all I want from you and payback is when you pass over, become my guide.
Oh, wow.
And she has, and she's the most best psychic and that I've ever met. This world.
Wow.
She's not very well known because she didn't want notoriety. She's very private. But I'll even show you a picture of her. I dedicated.
Let me highlight you so we can see the picture.
Yeah, that's a
okay. Push it up a little bit. Oh wow, that's beautiful.
That's a picture of it.
That's
beautiful lady.
And she's
But
transitioned, Gary. She's transitioned on the other side.
Yeah, she passed away about 5 or 6 years ago, and all the time now, before I do a reading, her Jupiter stone I put next to me, pointing to me as like a conduit, so she can come through. Yeah, believe it. The higher mind and guides do exist. The world's completely different on that side. It ain't physical. It ain't divided up, and like things are on this planet. But it's real power. And I asked her, and I was kind of surprised after she passed. Not really, but kind of. Yeah, I feel her all the time. I feel her talking to me. I feel her giving her hints. I ask her to help me do readings, and she's got nothing better to do than make this a better world, even though she's on the other side. People, guides can do that. We can do some stuff on this side and some stuff we do on the other side.
Gary, real quick. Talk about people have loved ones that have transitioned on the other side. What do you say about the viewers who are worried about their family members and that kind of thing? It goes into what you just talked about.
Well, they always say, people a lot of times say, oh, pray for the dead, pray for it. No, the dead are fine. They're okay. Pray for the living. Don't worry about people on the other side. They've already paid their fee to be free and liberated, and they're not walking around in misery and regret, The challenges are on this side.
Yeah.
They're in human form. They're here, they're now. When your guides pass over, don't worry about them. Worry if they went to hell or heaven. They're in heaven. There ain't any place to go.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes.
Now, you may linger around in the cesspool areas because you hadn't pulled yourself up to the light fully yet. But there is no hell other than the hell we create for ourselves and for other human beings. Period. There is no. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But I can see why a lot of people use the concept of heaven and hell, because humans ain't real smart, and you kind of got to give, carrot and stick kind of still works. Sorry. You got to kind of hit them with this and inspire them with that. Stupid human beings. I'm kidding. I'm one of them too.
No, and the fear has been effective. The fear tactics have been effective. But that's why I love NDEers, because you've experienced the other side and you come back and say, hey, this is really God. And I love
you can't believe how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
You can't believe. But there's no rush to get there. We came here to do our thing here, and so let's do our thing here. We'll get to there many times, and we've been there many times. And the irony of it is there's no end. It's a continuous, infinite mind imagining itself in different realms and different possibilities, and we come back for different experiences, live in different realms, and bottom line, every soul goes through every incarnation because it's all one mind seeing itself. In this life, you're you and I'm me, and we're separate. But in reality, we're the same thing. We're just looking at each other in separation as opposed to in the mass unification of everything.
And we've all played the different parts.
Absolutely.
We've been the villains and the saviors. We've been the rich and the poor. That's why judgment is so insane,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. We've been through this loop. But thank you so much, Loretta. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. I could have you on for another 2 hours for real.
Well, you can't now because I got a reading coming up.
Thank you so much for joining. And Gary, we end with the heart. It's corny, but that's my little thing.
There you go, girl.
All right. And thank you, everybody who stopped by and looked at this video. Please subscribe and share. Share to people who could benefit from this information. Love and light. We love you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, girl.
You
Thank
too.
you again.